So good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining and taking in and listening and appreciating the women on Trace Coffee Conversations. And I'm super excited today. Today is Jasmin Shaheed-Young, and I fangirl her in a way that it's not awkward, like it's not super inappropriate, but it could border, it's fine. But so she is the founder and president and CEO of RISE Indy, and we're going to get deep into that. And then she is the former vice president of Keystone Group, which is how we met. And then before that, you were finance director for the Andre Carson campaign and Marion County Democratic Party and all the things. And you know, that leads into my wheelhouse, and I love all of that.
Yes.
So people know, so we met a lifetime ago. How old is yours?
Yeah, right. It's always by the kids, you know, when you meet somebody by how many kids did I have?
Yeah, you were pregnant at the time. So yeah. Back in the day,
4 years ago.
4 years ago. And so I want to give a quick shout out, and then I'm going to let you talk. But I get so excited that I have you. And you were a lifetime ago, I wanted to open a school, and some of you guys listening know that. And I had an idea, and it was a little radical. And Jasmin, somehow we got linked up and was like the third person I talked to, and she was super pregnant. And I told her the thing, and she goes, "Let's do it. And I'm sending my kid to you." And
yes.
I'm on the phone. I go, "You don't know me." And it was amazing and super supportive. And she got it. And she is just an incredible supporter of women. And I am long-winded saying, I am so grateful for your time today.
Oh, Jillian, now I'm so excited to sit down and chat with you. With that, the school idea that you had was
one day maybe.
And there's a gap in the community of a school that actually is serving working mothers, right, who want to be present for their children, but also have some of the demands and restrictions of like, hey, I don't have all the time, but I want to be close to my kids. So yes, manifest it, and it will.
One of these days.
Listen, vision is vision.
I know. Right now we're supporting you, and I want you to talk about what you do.
Yeah.
Tell the people, what do you do?
So, I'm the founder and CEO of RISE Indy. We are a social justice organization that is focused on improving public education by way of engaging in elections and advocacy work. So, one of the things that I love to share is the work of RISE is not just under one organization umbrella. We actually have 3 companies. So launched 3 organizations in 1 year. Our C4, which is the muscle behind all of our election and advocacy work, is RISE Indy. And then we have a C3 that is focused on informing and educating community, which is called RISE United. And then our political action committee is the RISE Indy PAC. And that is the PAC that actually supports potential elected officials, so candidates, and those that are actually already policymakers. We directly support their campaigns so they're able to have conversations with us and our large community of coalition members to talk about how do we improve public education in putting students at the center of those discussions and actually hearing from those that are proximate to the challenge to influence and inform how we provide public education to our city.
I love it so much. I mean, grassroots and school board, and I think that's really where we have to start. I mean, yes, we need the up here, but like this is where our kids are. Like it's so important. And the first time Jasmin told me about this project, I just got goosebumps, and I was like, do I need to quit my job? What do we need to do? So good. It's so good. So how do you get there? Because obviously you've been involved politically, but then went to Keystone Group and then now started your thing. So what was that journey for you?
So my journey here was not linear, as I love
to never are.
Share, right? You show up, and opportunity is all about, that preparation and being at the right time at the right moment. I actually started, you mentioned my, previous careers, but I actually started my career in New York as a buyer for Bloomingdale's. I'm not sure if you knew that. So like,
I don't think I knew that.
When I say like my path here was not linear, I was in a whole nother city and doing it in a whole nother industry.
Is it weird that is not shocking to me though? Like I could see that.
It's a lifetime ago, but how I ended up at RISE was really around, I got back to Indianapolis in 2008, which is, I feel like, the year of Obama. And I was volunteering and supporting the local Democratic Party level, and got connected with folks and began my career as a political fundraiser. And so I supported the party and then went on to become the finance director for Congressman Carson, and was working across the country and helping to raise money for his campaign committee as well as his PAC. And then I had a kid and traveling was tough. So I decided to really lay roots in like staying in Indy and really building the city. And so transitioning from political fundraising to then development work and construction work, and feeling like I was making an impact in the city by way of buildings and new structures and building communities. And that definitely fed my soul as it relates to just making an impact and having legacy in community.
Yeah.
But still had this forever yearning, because I say once a public servant, always a public servant, of how am I leveraging the relationships that I have with really important people around the city and state to benefit those that are so disconnected to power and have been disenfranchised by our community, unfortunately, and leadership. So, education is one issue that is, can be even sometimes more polarizing than political parties, because
especially right now.
Exactly. Because if you look at, education, everyone feels like they're an expert because everyone was a kid and a student, right? And I know what it should be because I was a student. And then, of course, you graduate to the point of being a parent and you're like, I know what needs to happen because I know what my kid needs. And either you're for this or you're against that, which creates this whole idea of kids and teachers and schools are different. And there's not a one size fits all approach to public education. What we do need to realize is we do need to have more customized approach to public education. And the only way we can come up with solutions that show improvements in public education is to hear from community. And so we have to hear from the parents that had a terrible K-12 experience, but want something different for their kids, but don't even know if it's possible. So we have to create hope in them to allow for them to come out and advocate. We also have to have parents that, are from affluent families and middle-class backgrounds, that their kid will be good regardless of where they go to school, but they also want to have, a solid option as it relates to public education, a free education. So how do we have all of these parents and all of these voices collectively engaged in pushing for improvements, so ultimately all students are served well, and not just one group of students, but everyone. And so really having policymakers connected to community to create better policy initiatives that will actually, have outcomes that are higher than like less than half of folks being proficient in English language arts and math. We want to have, a K-12 system that actually prepares folks for success, whatever that looks like for them.
Oh, I love it so much. So tell us, and I know a little bit, but before we get to some other of the questions, because I kind of want you to talk about, because I know you're doing public education, and you had mentioned to me once that you're starting pilot programs. And so can you share how can people see your work, basically? Because eventually I want to get to how the community can show up, and then we're going to talk about maybe an ask, but I want to know, where can people see it? Is it something that they can maybe touch on, or is it already happening in schools and maybe parents don't know?
Yeah. So we have, I say if elections, I like to say that RISE, if elections is the heart of our work, the soul of our work is our coalitions. And we have 7 community-led coalitions at RISE that allows for our big vision that every resident is engaged in improving public education. So we have a coalition of teachers, parents, school leaders, faith leaders, elected officials, our Circle City Leaders program, which I'll talk to you about in terms of our pilot programming, and students. So like, it is all about more community members having these groups that they can actually talk about and get talk to and have more information in public education. So how you can get involved is, of course, joining our community-led coalitions. But some of the programs that we're working on this year, we have a Circle City Leaders program, which is a program that runs every other year that recruits and selects folks to join a 4-month training program that equips them with the tools and resources to be a candidate for office, school board being, of course, our number one, but candidate for a local city race, a state race, but the tools and understanding of how to be a candidate for office that prioritize a candidate who prioritizes public education. And then we run another track that is around campaign managers, that they can actually support those candidates so they know how to run a campaign. So it's called the Circle City Leaders Program. This is our 2nd year that we're running it. It just kicked off the 2nd cohort 2 Saturdays ago. Our next session is this Saturday. And it's 16 folks. There was 25 that went through in 2020. So we were forced to be virtual. And now we have this next 15 that are actually in person. And at the end of the program, folks then identify offices that they want to run for. And then RISE has a separate endorsement process. Going through the program does not lead to endorsement, but it does allow you to just have an understanding of who RISE is. And it just equips like new faces, because when we have the same folks that are running for office, or folks that are of a different generation, it's not as inspiring. When you look across the country and you look at the folks that are actually inspiring a new crop of voters, they're new faces. And that's on the Republican and the Democratic side, because we are a nonpartisan organization. So we work with both Republicans and Democrats because it's more issue-based. But if you look across the country, and you could even say our dear man that was in office for a couple of years, he was a new face to American politics, and he brought a new crop of folks that were like, I'm engaged here. Now, what we want is folks that are good on our issue of equity and improving public education to be new faces that will encourage folks that may not have been ever engaged or interested in politics to actually have an interest in getting engaged, because we have very low voter participation in the state of Indiana, one of the lowest in our country. And how do we bring more people to come out to engage in the electoral process? And that's like people that are like, oh, wait a minute, that's a new face or a new idea, or like a radical idea that could actually mean something. And I can get excited about that.
I love that. So where have you, through this process, and again, this means something different for everyone, but where have you found some of that struggle? But I got to ask that question because I asked for everyone, but I also really want you to talk about some of the delight that you found in your work.
Yeah. I would say the delight is talking to our parents and teachers about getting excited about being a part of the solution. This last legislative session, while it's unfortunate, has brought a lot of folks out because of the CRT bill was just, an overreaching power grab by folks who want to eliminate parts of American history. Black history is American history. And fortunately, it brought so many teachers out to the State House and writing letters and making calls, and parents and school leaders that are just not, the general faces that you see in advocating at the State House. So I think the success comes when people start showing up and demanding what they want, because that's what we need. We need people to feel entitled to demand a strong public education system, a schools that are academically rigorous and culturally affirming. We need all of that, and be entitled to push for that. And so that's success. It's also success when we get folks that, like women, which you know, who are more than capable, that finally realize that they want to put their name on a ballot and that they're willing to, you know, see the incredible people that they are and make that leap of, you know,
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it, because, you know, it takes 5 times over to ask a woman to consider running for office, where it will take a, you know, a one ask of a guy 21. Hey, do you want to run for Congress? Absolutely. I'm more than capable. I'm ready. Yeah. So that's delightful. And then we can also see when our advocacy work, when our parents and teachers and our coalition members show up, students too, and advocate for things at the local level, and seeing then that success. And that happened for us in November last year. We worked on a 7-month campaign to push for equitable funding at the local school board level, and for some dollars to reach Black and Brown students that were not reaching them before. And after 7 months, we saw that success. So it's, you know, it's a long game, but it's those moments that just, you know, keep me doing this work and feeling like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.
I love it. And so let's go to the next question of how can people show up? And I kind of alluded to it right before, but big ask, what can people do? What can we, you know, who the people that hear your message, right? That are like, okay, what next? What do I do? Like, I'm inspired. So how can people show up?
Well, at the most basic level, show up for your May primate, right? Show up and vote. You have to show up and vote, and encourage like 5 people that are in your network that are completely turned off by elections to show up and vote. So that's number 1. And even before then you vote, you have to be informed. So stay informed on who's on your ballot, do the research, and actually vote with the understanding of what folks stand for. Because sometimes you might think because of, you know, a friend saying that like, hey, support them, you have to do your own research. And how you can specifically get engaged with the RISE work, voting, making sure that you're informed on school board, because it is a down ballot race that doesn't get a lot of attention. And so if you know who's on the school board and what they stand for, that's really important for you. And then of course, visit our website. We are riseindy.org. And you can, when you visit our website, you can sign up to join one of our community-led coalitions, show up, take a role of chair or vice chair, get other people to come and show up. The more we have folks informed at the local level, I think we'll see increased engagement across the board. We want a world-class city. We continue to lose folks in Indianapolis to the suburbs, and people move to the suburbs because of schools. So if we want to have a world-class city, we must have a world-class public education system that's serving all students and all students well. So invest in understanding what is happening at the local level and at the school board. School boards determine your neighborhood, right? I mean, like it has the most direct impact to your life, because people want to be in neighborhoods that have good schools. And if you invest in understanding what's happening, whether you have kids or not, everyone wants to be in a good neighborhood. So join one of our community-led coalitions.
I love it so much. And I love that you touched on, even if you don't have kids, because we all pay taxes and I don't want to be surrounded by dumb people. So like, I'm investing in everyone, right? So I love that you said that. So the biggest question, it's my favorite question, legacy question. Jasmin, how are you going to leave your trace?
It's legacy-ish, right? So I want to leave my mark on the city that I live, with an understanding that showing up in service and ensuring that we have a public education system that reflects a city that is investing in the next generation. That we have a next generation of, informed, intelligent folks that join the workforce as a way to attract businesses to Indianapolis, because we have a stronger public education system. It's all about service for me. Whatever I do is about how am I serving? How am I serving? How am I being in constant contribution and adding value and showing up and living and understanding there's a great responsibility, because as a Black woman, I grew up in a family where my parents prioritized all four of us, four girls, having a strong public education system. So we wouldn't be, my father said, we wouldn't be reliant on a man. We would have our own, be able to make our own money.
Yes.
And so when I think about that, I think about that is like across the board, across the city, across the state, across the country. How do we make sure that we're showing up and being in contribution? Education is the first step, first way out of poverty. And so breaking cycles of generational poverty comes with having a strong public education system. And that is the work and the service that I'm doing now, and where God has placed me. So
Jasmin, thank you so much. I've kept notes. I was like, ooh, that's a pull quote. I'm putting that on a t-shirt. Like, so many good things. You give me goosebumps every time we talk. I'm just so grateful for the work you do. And I'm so grateful for all the things that you continue to do. So thank you for taking the time to have coffee with me and sharing your story with all of us.
Yes. And you're going to join our parent community coalition, right?
I signed up on the website. I signed up. I put my name in there. They got my email. Just call me.
Yes. Love it.
I love all of it. So thank you. Thank you again.
Absolutely.